is the sandwich generation. That someone that's in the sandwich generation is both taking care of their children and a parent or a loved one. So they're sandwiched in between both of those caregiving duties. And there are 4 unique challenges that I've come across as someone in the sandwich generation. So today we're going to talk about the 4 unique challenges of caregiving in the sandwich generation. The first challenge that is obvious is the idea that there is this sandwich. The split time of caregiving duties between your children and your parent, or perhaps parents, or maybe another loved one. So as a parent, there are times when you're giving care and then maybe you're not. Well, if you're in the sandwich generation, you are both giving time to your children as a caregiver, and when you're off duty with that, chances are you are on duty as the caregiver of your parent or loved one. So that sandwich, that split duty between caregiving on one end and caregiving on the other is a unique challenge of people in the sandwich generation. In addition, that split duty could also contain a third component, which is you're caregiving for your children, you're caregiving for your parent, and you've got a home. So you're caring for your home, right? So it can be even worse than just a double split, it can be a triple split as well. The second challenge of someone in the sandwich generation is that this usually occurs, this idea of being in the sandwich generation, if you still have children that you're caring for in your home and caring for your parents, chances are you have a job too. And that's what I've experienced in my role as a sandwich generation caregiver is, yes, I'm caring for my children, I'm caring for my parent, and I also have a job to do. So balancing my job duties and responsibilities with my caregiving duties and responsibilities, both for children and parents, is quite a juggling act. Another thing that happens with this balancing of job and caregiving is the constant switching of hats. So I'm a parent, I'm a caregiver, I'm an employee, I'm a caregiver, I'm a parent, I'm an employee, I'm a caregiver. It can get overwhelming and it always seems like a different hat is on, right? Now, number 3, I call it a unique challenge, but really every caregiver, every parent experiences this: guilt, right? We all experience guilt from time to time, but because we're balancing so many different things and we've added these extra components, sometimes that balancing act can be overwhelming, and the guilt we feel from having to wear those multiple hats can just weigh extra heavy on the sandwich generation caregiver. Another thing that adds to the guilt is the idea that every time we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to the other. So for example, this weekend, it was a holiday weekend, and I wanted to say yes to being with my family out at the beach, but it meant that I had to say no to spending more time with my mother for my caregiving duties. And so that switch of time made it a little bit harder because I felt guilty in giving more time to one and less time to the other. But I can guarantee you, because this has happened many times, and if you're a sandwich generation caregiver, you know this, if I had chosen the opposite, I would have been thinking about my children down at the beach the whole time. And, it would have been that same tug of war, right? So that guilt tug of war that is always happening, I think, is unique in the sandwich generation caregiver. So the fourth challenge is, of course, something that basically is a chronic throughout our world today. But I think when we're talking about self-care, the time that sandwich generation caregivers feel able to commit to their own self-care is greatly diminished. Because as we've talked about in the 3 previous challenges, we're split, we're multitasking, we're changing hats, and then we have that guilt. Yes to one means no to the other. So if I say no to one and no to the other so I can say yes to myself, that just piles on that guilt, right? And so we tend to put off caring for ourselves so that we could at the very least care for those other people, which of course is important. But what happens when we don't care for ourselves is that we eventually are not able to care for other people. Things happen, our health declines, our emotional health declines, and furthermore, we experience what we call compassion fatigue. Now, as we've discussed today, the 4 challenges of being in the sandwich generation or being a sandwich generation caregiver are: split focus on caregiving duties, balancing job with the caregiving duties, wrestling with that intense guilt, and not having adequate time for self-care. So, my question for today is, have you experienced any of these as a caregiver? If so, leave your thoughts in the comments here and let's talk about it. Maybe you've experienced another unique challenge that you'd like to share. I'd love to hear from you. So just drop that information or drop your description or your feelings or your thoughts in the comments of this video. Do you want to learn ways that you can deal with these 4 unique challenges? Maybe get some encouragement as you walk through your sandwich generation caregiving life? Then hit that subscribe button because that's what we'll be diving into in this channel.